Good morning, dear colleagues, students, teachers. Good morning, dear Jan. I am glad to see all of you. And today I want to present Mariupol School of Journalism. And will you be so kind as to give visualization just for us to see what we are doing. I want to emphasize and to say that Mariupol, as we know from the press, became a hero city. And Mariupol State University was called in press Hero University too. And as we see, is it okay with visualization?
Yeah,
Can we see Mariupol State University?
Yes. Can you see? Can everyone see Svetlana's slides on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we see it. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very
Number
much.
2, please. Yes. Mariupol State University, and then we can see the building of Mariupol State University. I want to emphasize, dear colleagues, that Mariupol School of Journalism is the only one in Donetsk region. And we have 3 bachelor and 1 master programs, which are there on the on the slide. And today I want to tell what helped us to survive, what results from past, what key points helped us to continue our work. You see, first of all, in our curriculum, we have some internal and external projects. And these projects are mostly online, and they are in cooperation with media outlets. And you see now that is on the first slide, dual education in television journalism. It is based on cooperation between Mariupol State University, national and local TV channels. And I'm glad to see that today the president of the Mariupol television is with us. I'm sure he will tell a few words about our cooperation too. We had very good feedback from this project. Concerning radio, that is on the next slide, we have just unique experience because we are the only one faculty who created the model of radio station upgrading, and bankrupt radio station became a creative space for students. You see, we had very good platform in Mariupol just for presenting students' projects. We also created, in cooperation with Academy of Ukrainian Press, media literacy and media research laboratory, just some kind a guide for confident and competent navigation in online environment. And I want to speak about 2 more projects, that is international projects. That is Media Hub project. It was financed by the Media Development Fund of United States Embassy. That is digital training center. And this project had very nice feedback too, because among the guests were representatives of European Journalism Training Association. On the next website, we see the director of this association, Nadia Visers. That is Danica Ilic, journalist of the World Network of the Ethic Journalism. That is our colleagues from Bath University. These people have experience of work on BBC, chair of Regional Press Institute, Oleg Khaminok, and chair of Gromadsky Radio, our best friend, Andrei Kulikov, and other very interesting trainers. We tried to combine best international experience and best Ukrainian experience, and it was a very nice project. We are working now, and it is presented on the next slide, in Erasmus Plus project. there is a very big project called Journalism Education for Democracy in Ukraine, developing standards, integrity, and professionalism. And among the project members, 20 organizations from European Union and from Ukraine. It is Ministry of Science and Education of Ukraine, some organizations responsible for quality assurance, media outlets, universities from Europe, 10 universities from Ukraine. We continue our work in this project. And on the next website, we can see all the partners. And students presenting their printed media on a coming slide, and the next slide too. And the last slide, it is maybe the conclusion, because Mariupol State University moved to Kiev, and thanks to this project, we collected 78% of students. They work remotely from different towns of Ukraine and different countries. And I want to say today that it is very important that university is not only buildings which were destroyed. University, it is first of all people and their best qualities. This help us to survive. And as for me, I left Mariupol in March and moved to Oslo to my family, to the part of my family. And today I want to say thank you. I am very grateful to all the colleagues, to all the journalists who helped me on the way. Thanks to people's kindness, kindness. And now I want to give a floor to our students. They can talk today from really different parts of the world, and they will speak about their experience during wartime. Tatiana Kamenskaya is not only a successful student, she is constantly practicing journalism in local media. And Tatiana, will you tell us today about your last jobs? Will you be so kind as to tell us what are the most important skills for journalists during wartime to your mind? Please, Tatiana.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me? Thank you for the meeting. I started working as a journalist since my 18. With help of my university, I became a part of the team of the local channel in Mariupol called TV7. I have been working about 1.5 years, and then I decided to quit. So I also have an experience as a newspaper journalist. But for 1 month before the full-scale invasion of Russia, I was an intern on the regional channel. And because of beginning of the war at 2014, I have learned some circumstances of being a journalist during wartime, because our city became literally became stronghold of peaceful Donbass. First of all, it was very important to comply with standards of journalism, but also I can highlight regular communication with press office of operation of the United Forces. Filming in a gray zone was no rarity, and it was very important to remind people in the peaceful city about the war. And I think it was local social media's responsive, because sometimes our editorial office was the first one who published some news about the war in the eastern Ukraine. And I remember how glad we were when some media giants published it referring to us. In general, working during the war means to have much communication with military and temporarily moved people. I remember how I worked at the first day of full-scale invasion of Russia. Then I decided that it would be too dangerous to stay in the city. So around 1 month, I was around 30 kilometers in front of Mariupol. I have learned the one more feature of being a journalist during the war. I remember it was a rumor between people that occupants started to search houses. And it was pretty clear that it is too dangerous having some evidence of journalistic work. I mean, a license or some equipment like a camera or a microphone, and it will cost you life. So I have burned or carefully hid all the evidence of my work. However, I know that some of my colleagues have been working in the Mariupol, and some of them are still covering the events in the city, and I'm very proud of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tatiana, for your experience. It is very interesting. We all know that feelings became more sharp during the war. And today with us is Valeria Kucheryavenko. Valeria was wounded during the war. She is a very nice, very active student. She is a member of Students' Council. And Valeria, will you tell us today about how to survive and how to help people in such a situation? Will you take a floor, please?
Yes, hello everyone. Once again, I will introduce myself. My name is Valeria Kucheryavenko, and I'm from Mariupol. I spent exactly 19 years and 1 month there, of which 2 months my city was destroyed. During these 2 months in the city, everything has changed, and values and dreams and attitudes to people, we understood that we had only one goal: to survive. Although, to be honest, I could not always give a clear yes to the question of whether I wanted to go on living. The rented house, the lack of communication, what people around me understand how to go on living cast jobs. We tried to help in any way we could. Our neighbor was a lonely woman who had no children or husband, and we bought her water from the river, cooked on our fire, shared our food samples, and we understood that in war one must remain inhuman, and we wanted to give hope to this woman. On March 10, a mine from enemy plane fell into the yard, and shell fragments fell into the house where we, with family, we were in the kitchen, and we decided to have breakfast this time, not in the basement. And we were in the risk zone. Likely everyone was alive. The only thing was that the shrapnel ended up in my hand. This caused a purulent infection, and trivial medication didn't not cure it. After a while, my friend Nikita Vasilyev got me antibiotics. He volunteered at the hospital. There he gave first aid, helped silly ones, and literally he risked his life for others. He wanted to be a doctor in the future, and I think such act confirms the rightness of his choice. After end of Mariupol, after end of April, I left Mariupol, but now my family with my grandparents there, and they help them to live there as much as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your experience you have shared. Daria Chiridnichenko is very talented student too. She is responsible leader of her group. And Dasha, what did you feel during the war? What is your story?
Hello, everybody. I'm Daria Chiridnichenko, and I'm a student of Mariupol State University. I've been studying journalism for 2 years, and now I'm in Scotland. But I continue to study at my university, and I've never thought about leaving it because I really like all of the tutors and all we do there. And I believe that even war is not a hindrance when you love what you do. And as for my experience, I have spent 3 weeks in Mariupol when the war started. And I can say that it was the most terrible experience in my life. And now when I tell this to you, my heart is beating very fast because sometimes it's really hard to remember such situations. And after the first week of Russian invasion, we lost the opportunity to get any news about situation in our country. And then I understood how important journalism is. And I remember how we spent half of the day trying to find the place where can we find a signal, and to call our friends from other cities and just to ask about the main news in a few minutes. And I will never forget how I always asked the same question, when the war will end, because it was something crazy. And soon we lost this opportunity, and all we knew was the news about the situation like near our house. And sometimes I thought I was going crazy. That's why I decided that I will keep all my memories in a diary. I decided that I will write down all of my experience. And then when we left the city after 3 weeks, and we continue studying in our university, these stories, one of my story and other students' stories, thanks to our tutors, they became heard, because, for example, one of my stories, one of the part of my story when I told about my birthday, which was on the 7th of March, when I was at Mariupol, it was heard on one of the radio stations in our country, thanks to Andrei Kulikov. And it was a great opportunity to share my experience. And the other part of my story, the other memories were on the video, in the video of the head of one of the Mariupol news resources, Mykola Sachenko. He's also here today. I'm really grateful for this opportunity, because I think that it's extremely important to share such stories, because we know what happened and what continue happening in Ukraine, and the world, the whole world should know about this as well. And maybe it's a small contribution to general journalism in our country, but I think that it's really important, and this is what we can do as a students, and I think that we should do like this. We must tell people all around the world about this, and everybody should know about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Daria. It was great, really. Thank you. Master program student Valentin Zagreba organized volunteer help to people who are in need. Valentin, are you with us? Will you tell us?
Yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me?
How did you do it?
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, it should be noted that social networks have an important role in journalist work. I'm not a big fan of Facebook, and I have not used it much in the last few years. I prefer Instagram and LinkedIn, but this have changed since March this year. My stay in Mariupol, as well as for all the residents of the city, since February 24 was a hard time. We were without communication, water, gas, and heating, and also the constant shelling and bombing of the city, and the need to cook food over fire added to the unsettling days in our lives. And when we left the city in mid-March, the first thing to do was to organize help for friends and their families. There was still no mobile phone service in Mariupol. The only possibility in March to provide assistance for the people of Mariupol was to transfer it to Berdyansk. Berdyansk is a city 100 kilometers from Mariupol towards Zaporizhia. Several of my friends left Mariupol for Berdyansk at the end of March, and they went to Mariupol, bringing their friends and relatives from them. And thanks to the help collected on Facebook, we helped to buy petrol to take people from Mariupol to Zaporizhia, and we helped to evacuate several dozen families. With the finances raised on Facebook, we were able to pay for petrol to get our friends out of Mariupol. And at this time, petrol cost between 4 and 8 pounds sterling a liter in Berdyansk. And we also organized resettlement assistance in Ukraine and outreach to Europe for these families. And my daughter is a ninth grader, was a big influence in drawing attention to helping the residents of Mariupol. Starting on 24 February, she started making short videos. And after leaving the city, this video diary came to the attention of the Ukrainian, British, and American media. In this way, family journalism helped to highlight the problem of Mariupol residents under blockade, as well as those who need help after leaving the city.
Thank you, Valentin. You are very brave just to help people and to share your experience today. Thank you a lot to you. And our last speaker, our PhD student and teacher, Petro Katerinchuk. Petro started to work with students online. Petro, are you with us? Please, you are welcome.
Hello.
How you organized your work with students today? How did you do it?
Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. I must to say, yesterday several Russian missiles fell near my house, killing 4 people. This is the second such case in a short time. But you know, in times of war, you have to continue living, studying law, and just to be. And I will tell you a little bit about studying process at Mariupol University. Students at Mariupol State University, despite their geographic coordinates and security situation, managed to create media projects. We prepare specialists for Ukraine of the future. And that is why from the very first year, journalism students create a virtual editorial board. It is important that students feel part of the media family.
Okay, thank you, Petro.
Thank you.
And I am now give the floor to Jan.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Maybe there will be any questions to Mariupol team.
Absolutely, thank you. And so I'm going to ask folks for their questions in a moment, but here's an idea, because I just want to show my appreciation and my admiration for what you've all been through in your own ways. So I'm just going to suggest to everyone, if you want to just unmute yourself, and let's just give these folks a round of applause, just to show, you know, how much we admire what you've been doing. Because, you know, I'm not sure I would have the strength and the fortitude and the bravery to do what you've been doing in all your very different contexts. So thank you so much. So if you've got a question just for either for Svetlana, I've got a couple, but I'm sure you have as well. So either if you want to raise your hand with well, you can do that actually physically, or use the little reaction button to raise a hand if you've got a question, or if you want to put something into the chat box. Thank you for that, Katie. Katie's saying it's humbling. Let me just, humbling and such an honor to hear from you all. You are amazing. Absolutely, Katie. Thank you. Anybody got a question? I mean, Svetlana, can you just tell me, how do you function at the moment in terms of teaching? Have you had to change how often you meet with the students online now, or do you have to change what you are teaching?
Oh no, we are just teaching in online. We use a combination of online instruments. These are different messages: Telegram, Viber, WhatsApp, just to be very quick to find out any person we need. It is, of course, university platform Moodle. We use Google Class, different software, and just this combination of online instruments help us to organize the teaching process. Yes,
well done on being, I guess, so adaptable and flexible to be able to do that. And I have a question for the students. I mean, I'm just wondering, students, has this changed your outlook on what you want to do with your career? I mean, we don't know how this will end, sadly. But I'm imagining that when you enrolled at university for a degree in media or journalism, you had certain dreams and certain aspirations. Has that changed, or do you still want to do what you want to do, or has your experience given you other ideas of what you might want to do afterwards? Anyone, either those that we've already heard from, or maybe some of the students from Mariupol that we haven't heard from? Anyone want to tell us about perhaps how their experiences have changed, what they want to do with their career, whether that's in journalism or elsewhere? Yes, Daria, do you want to unmute? Yes, thank you, Daria.
Yes, as I said, my attitude to my specialty has changed a bit, because I understood how important it is, and it's much more harder than we could think about it, because when everything is okay, you can choose, I don't know, maybe to work in the fashion magazine, or to tell people about travel, something to entertain. But now everybody understands that we have the same, the main goal, and we all have to tell people truth about the war. And now all of the news are about war. And you should understand that it's really hard work, and you have to be brave to do this. And as Tatiana said, you have to know all about journalism standards, because they are now they are even more important than when it wasn't war in Ukraine. That's why now I understand that I have to spend more time preparing for my future profession, because I have to have good skills to work, and it's up to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Daria. Thank you for that response. Any of the other students want to? Yes.
So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who?
Polina, you go first, Polina.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm completely agree with Darina, because we are all journalists here, and we all wanted to get to know the truth and to give this truth to other people. And since this situation, now this desire is bigger. So I just can feel it in myself that I want to know more about the history, more about what is going on, and I want to share this information with other people. And I guess this, of course, has a lot of influence on every person here. So yeah, thanks for attention.
And Valeria, I think you wanted to say something?
Yes, I want to say that my desire to become a journalist has only grown stronger because I realized how important this profession is. I want to get more theory and practice in this field. Because 2 years ago, I started studying at Mariupol State University. I have been madly fond of journalism since my school's years, and during my studies we created magazines. Now there are already 6 magazines. These magazines about Mariupol, about people, about events, and I am very proud of them. We wrote articles, made radio and video researching, and we had a quality of interesting training, and I want this trend to continue until the end of my studies.
Excellent, that's fantastic. Thank you. And Petro, you want to say something?
Yes, a few words, if you let me. Some of my students created the media Polyanica. It's a media project about Ukrainian culture. The students said it was during the war that they were inspired because the word Polyanica became a code word for identifying Russians. So we might say that the war led them to this idea.
Wow, yeah. Thank you for that, Petro. Anyone else or any other questions? Yes, who's that?
I want to say I definitely agree with Daria, and I think it's very important to take people to know about the war in Ukraine. And I've been a journalist during wartime, and despite it, I also think that I want to be a journalist now, and I want to make news about the war in Ukraine, and it's very important because if Ukrainian students won't do it, who else should do it?
Yeah, very, very good point, Tatiana. Thank you for that. Anyone else? I'm just going to check both of my pages here of see if anybody else is putting a hand up. Any other questions? Bethany, do you want to unmute yourself, Bethany, or do you want me to ask you a question?
I'm happy to unmute. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Hi, Svetlana. We're waving at each other. We're friends. So
nice to meet.
It's nice to see you again. I'm honestly so inspired by your work and your resilience. Like one of the things that we talk about when we think about graduates and the graduates we want to make over and over again is we want you to be resilient. And I have never seen a better example of that than you guys. So thank you. I guess that I just want to ask a really practical question in a way. I think that as journalists is that what can we do to help? How can we help raise awareness? What are there ways, pragmatic things, communicative things, like, you know, what ways can we help you right now?
Thank you, Bethany. I mean, I think that's a question we'll also be asking to our professional journalists as well in a moment, but to Svetlana and our students, practical help, either in terms of you doing your role as trying to report the war yourselves, or I guess more basic practical needs as well. Maybe we're thinking of. Anybody want to? I mean, is there stuff that we're just not aware of in England right now that that we ought to be aware of, maybe challenges or difficulties?
Can I say that we are very grateful because it is great support. It helps greatly. It inspires you too, because kindness back to kindness, it is something. We are very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Svetlana. Students, anything else that you want to comment on that, or anything any help that? I see Jim's got his hand up. Jim, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, because I think like everybody in the UK, probably, I'm sitting here feeling totally humbled by what I'm listening to and seeing. I'm sitting in a very safe little front room in Hexham, and it's just amazing how your students are bringing the story and the personal stories, which will have such an impact across the world. That's what's really important. And I think the question that I had is I'm wondering where you have, as students and tutors, where you have found this spirit from, this bravery and spirit. Most of our students struggle to get into a lecture in the morning, and you guys are so inspirational, but I wondered where you got your personal strength from, really, both the students and the tutors,
Thank you, Jim. Svetlana, do you want to?
Oh, can you say only one sentence? It is really people support. It is love. It is kindness, and it inspires greatly. Thank you again, and thank you to all the people who are helping and supporting students and university.
Yes, Nick.
I'm sorry, hi. When we are talking about the spirit of our students, I'd like to tell that I'm very glad to see all of my students here. It's a very big proud for me. But when my students told you that I'm giving for them some exercises, one of the goals was to make a little video story, little video blog, which will show the city where they are right now and the Mariupol, so the two of them. And most of my children, as I call them, they do the perfect work, but one of them is in Moscow. She is in Moscow, and she made a very good video blog. She standing all the places in Moscow and speaking at Ukrainian language. It was very a brave video, and one of the places where she was, it was the MGU. It's Moscow State University. It's MGU like Mariupol State University. It's MGU. And she stands there and told that I'm standing near the MGU, but it's not the same. So the spirits of these children, it's very big thing. It's very high, and I think if these guys, these girls survived in Mariupol, they don't afraid nothing, nothing at all.
Fantastic point. Thank you very much, Nick. Katie, I saw you with a hand up earlier on. Did you still have a question, Katie?
Yes, Привіт і дякую to our Ukrainian visitors. Thank you very much for joining us today. What I would really like to know is, for those of you who have moved out of the country, what are your observations of reporting on what is your story from the country that you're now staying in? Do you see what I mean? Do you feel as though, for instance, in Oslo or in Scotland, the reporting of the war in Ukraine is accurate to how you felt it and how you experienced it and what your friends home are saying?
Yes, thank you, Katie. Svetlana, do you want to just kick us off on that in terms of what you're seeing in Oslo and the reporting of the war and the invasion from Oslo? Does it chime or marry up with what your friends and relatives back in Ukraine are saying?
I want to say that maybe it is just like internal and external. Ukrainian media, they just are reporting with pain in their heart. And here in Oslo, in Norway, it is some kind, another point of view, not another, but on a distance, you see? And it is more analysis and less emotions.
Thank you, Svetlana. And students, I mean, and again, this is a great question, Katie, and we'll ask our professional journalists this as well in a moment, but students and student journalists, particularly those of you, if you're are outside of Ukraine, have you learned anything about how different journalists in different countries report the same events? Daria, in Scotland, yes.
Yes, I agree with Svetlana, because now I have an opportunity to watch BBC News, original BBC News. And as for me, honestly speaking, I don't see them like every day because it's really hard. And but sometimes when I see, I understand that it's really strange for the first time to see, to watch the news about your city when you are in Scotland and you see the British news. Sometimes it feels like something crazy. But I completely agree with Svetlana that the news are more, there are more analytics in this news, and it's okay. I think that's fine, just to understand the situation, because as far as I understood, people in Scotland here, where I am, they really know a lot of information about all of the news. They really watch them every day, and they also support us very much, and I'm so grateful. And sometimes, for example, if they woke up earlier than us, they could watch the news and then tell us what happened in Ukraine. And it's really nice. So all of us now are like in the same situation, but it hurts us. But I understand that all of them are support us, and they make everything to help us. And I think that it's really nice. And the journalism in Britain also helps Ukrainians, and I'm really grateful for this.
Thank you very much, Daria. Well, folks, if there isn't, well, David Baines has a question here, but I think, well, we could ask this question now, David, and then we'll ask it of our professional journalists too. But David's asking, do you think the people of Ukraine have come to rely on and trust local journalists more since the war has started? Again, that's a very important question I want to put to our panel of professional journalists in a moment. But again, Svetlana and students, do you get a sense that people in Ukraine now value local journalists more, but also trust them more? Or is there, are there issues of, as there are everywhere, issues of disinformation that perhaps still make some local people a little bit reluctant to believe what they're being told? What's your experience and thoughts on that?
Can I say that, dear colleagues, to my mind, the role of local media, even hyperlocal media, is increasing now, because it is very important information, and it is very quick response. Sometimes this information is not able to come to the big news outlets because it needs time. And what is this important information about? How to survive, how to find green corridor, how to find water, what will be tomorrow morning in this small territory. And hyperlocal media, they are very quick with response, with answer on these questions. They are absolutely necessary for people. You see, and it seems to me the level of trust is higher than it was before because of this unstable situation. It changes very quickly, information changes very quickly, and for people it is absolutely necessary to get to know very quick what is going on around, how to survive. That's why it seems to me there is an answer on the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Svetlana. Students, I don't know, did you, any students?
Can I add some information?
Yes,
yes, definitely. People have started to check out local media more, especially in Telegram, where media have created their own channels. There was a study in Ukraine that showed that interest in local media has increased by 16% since the war began. Why? In Ukraine, a lot of events and incidents happen in a day. That is why it is impossible to talk about everything in the central media. Local resources allow you to tell about the movement of the military in the area and allow readers to send their videos or photos from the scene of the incidents.
Yes, yes, great point. Katie, you want to say something?
Yeah, could I just come in there and say, in some countries, typically after natural disasters, for instance in Haiti, radio becomes a really important source of communication because it can be used by generators and doesn't rely on the internet and that kind of thing. In this instance in Ukraine, is this hyperlocal communication tending to happen online? Is it mostly through social media, or are traditional media being used as well?
Thank you, Kira. Again, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a moment with our professional journalists. But again, students, is that something? I mean, where are you getting most of your, Daria?
I wanted to add some information to Svetlana's answer, and I wanted to say that the war and this situation has changed our minds. As I can see, I talked to my friends, and before the war, I think that like young people were not very interested in news, in all of this information, but now everybody has changed their mind because it became so important. And now young people sometimes know more about the situation than even their parents, because they always use social networks, and and news spread very fast in social networks. That's why now the situation probably completely changed, and I think that in the future young people will be more interested in news in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daria. That's a really insightful comment and an encouraging comment as well. Kitty, we will come back to that question. I promise, just about radio. Yes,
can I say a few words concerning Mariupol? Because town was for 2 months without electricity, water, gas, mobile connection. It was very interesting to see how media works. Some conclusions from this situation. First of all, people are lost in social surrounding without information and without media. Me and my colleague, we found old radio receiver, and we were listening to the radio, and people near fireplace were waiting for us to come and to say what is going on around. I remember the year before, I was preparing my projects and talking about mainstreams in local authority with my colleagues. Everything is going in the net. Everything is digital now. But in crisis situation, I have to say that my conclusion is diversity comes first. Radio is important. Hyperlocal media is important too. That is a conclusion.
Thank you, Svetlana. That's
And
Valentin.
I can say some words. And my experience in Mariupol showed me the importance of the local media. And when communication stopped in March, and there was no news about what was happening in the city or in the country, at that time I found out all the news when I was fetching drinking water. People were telling each other the news about what was going on in the city or in the country, who had heard or knew what, and this communication replaced the local media.
Yes, no, thank you very much for sharing that, Valentin. Well, folks, I'm going to just press the pause button there on our conversation, because I want to thank Svetlana and our students. Again, thank you so much. Svetlana's going to stay with us now as we move into the next segment and go into our discussion panel with our panel of professional journalists who are working in Ukraine right now. So let me introduce them to you. You've heard from some of them already, but we have, and again, forgive me for my pronunciations here, Andrei Kulikov. Andrei is chair of Hromadsky radio station. I hope I got that right, Andrei. Mykola Osichenko, head of Mariupol TV. Oksana Brovko is here, and Oksana is chief executive of the Association of Independent Regional Publishers of Ukraine. So welcome, Oksana, and welcome to Sergei Tomilenko. Sergei is president of the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine. So again, if we can just kind of virtually show our appreciation and welcome them to our discussion today. Thank you, all four of you, for being here. Can I just ask you, first of all, about your own experiences since February 2022? We've heard from our students about what their experiences have been. Can I just ask you, each of you, what it's been like for you personally, but also professionally since the invasion began? Oksana, can I come to you first of all, if that's okay? Can you just tell us a little bit about your experiences over the last few months?
Yeah, Jan, thank you very much, and thank you to all colleagues who just tell us what we feel in all of this time. It's really important. Yeah, we have to keep talking about it. As I am CEO of Association of Regional Publishers, so I am keeping in touch with about 100 newspapers and local sites in the whole Ukraine. So when the war began, first of all, I checked if everything is fine with all of my colleagues. That was very important. Yeah, and after that, I decided that we have to help our journalists to be safe, because journalists, they are that people who have to show to the world what happened right now. So we run away and try to find vests, helmets, first aid kits for regional journalists, communicate with our colleagues from Belgium, from Sweden, from Poland, yeah, and they send to us all of these humanitarian aids, and we resend these vests and helmets and sleeping bags, power banks to all of the journalists in the region, yeah, directly to Zaporizhia, to Chernihiv, to Kherson, to Odessa, to Mykolaiv, to different places. We try to cover with, and to make safe all of the journalists whom we unite. And then the second big problem, issue for us was financial support for the regional media, because of course everything stopped. Then the war began, so it was, a really great experience, because a lot of our colleagues from Europe support us and still supporting us, and that's why our journalists still have a possibilities, to work, to show the world the truth. For me, as from professional side, I understood that work is very important, and hard work is saving your psychological state. It helps very much. Also, it is important to work together with colleagues and keep together. That was really important. And all of our association members, we still have a communication, everyday communication with each other. If something happened in Odessa or something happened in Kherson, we try to communicate in 1 minute, in 1 second, and check is everything okay, or you need an urgent help. So we help to our regional media to relocate. Some of them relocate from Chernihiv, some of them relocate from Polohe, from Guliaipole, from Kherson. And we need to support, to find, to rent an apartment, to pay for apartment, to have some money for food. They need computers, because a lot of part of journalists just lost all of their equipment. So we try to find this kind of support for them as well. Also, as you discussed earlier, how it was for hyperlocal media during this war. We still have a very big problem with paper for local newspapers, because the biggest part of the paper which we used before the war was from Russia. And now a lot of newspapers stopped to publish, and not only because of the hot situation in the region, but also because they do not have a paper for printing newspaper. So our colleagues from Europe also donate for some of our regional newspapers this kind of help, and that is really very important, because, as you mentioned earlier, these local people who live in small cities, they need to know what happened. Not all of them use Telegram and Facebook, and paper, special editions, special war editions are very important for them as well. So we try to help to survive and to spread the hyperlocal information between the readers in this way as well. From a personal side, I prepared for the beginning of the war, but then it was start. I understand that no, I do not prepare for this. I didn't know before that I can pack all of my life, my husband's life, and life of my 4 kids in one car. Because we were we lived very close to Kyiv, in a village, not far from Kyiv. So then everything started. We moved to the western part of Ukraine, and I'm here in western part of Ukraine together with my family now. And it was more easy than I thought. Just to find the right things what you will need out of your home. But now, as I mentioned, the work and hard work helped. So I understand that I can work 24 hours, 22 hours, okay, yeah, per day, and that's true. And it helps to survive. Yeah, then you help to your media, to your colleagues, then you try to find support, and a lot of people from abroad help you, and they are ready to help and support. It's really important. Yeah.
Thank you, Oksana. And Oksana, can I ask, in terms of your membership, can you estimate how many of your members are still operating as newspapers or news organizations, and how many do you estimate have either stopped or are not operating in the same way as they once were?
Jan, all of my members still operating. All of my members. Maybe only one stopped to do that. It's a site from Polohe. Polohe is a small city in Zaporizhia region. It was occupied a few months ago, and it is still occupied. And the situation in the city is really difficult. So the editor office stopped to work because it is really unsafe. And as per others, they are still working because of help of our friends from Poland, from Sweden, because they collected donations to our media. Then they support us financially, and they support us humanitarian. That's why I try to spread, to divide all of this help between the media, between the regional media who need it a lot. And of course, our media in Chernihiv, it was bombed. They stopped to publish their newspaper and to work on their sites for a short period of time. But right now we are doing that. And I think this last month they restart to publish their newspaper, and they continue to be active on all of their regional sites on this territory. As per Kherson region, we have a newspaper, Hrivnya. Kherson is occupied now, and all of editorial office relocate from the city. And Russians military came to their editor office. They took out all of their equipment, all of computers, printers, all of database as well. We were lucky that the chief of this media delete all of personal information because it was before, because it should be very dangerous. So, but they relocate, but they continue to work. They relocate their site to another domain, and they continue to write about the situation in Kherson. They have some private communications with people who still stay in the city, so they just try to find a necessary information for people which can be important for people who are there. So they still try to work. As Zaporizhia newspaper, they stopped for a short time. They stopped to publish newspaper, but now they restart and they continue to work at their site. UA, I think colleagues from Mariupol should know this.
Thank you, Oksana, for sharing that. Andrei, can we come to you now? Can you tell us a little bit about what the operations of your radio station have been since February? What has changed, and what has stayed the same, perhaps?
What has stayed the same is the adherence to professional standards. Some people say that war excludes the application of such things as objectivity or timeliness or whatever. I have always strongly believed, and I believe now, that it makes our duty to adhere to professional standards even more acute. But before proceeding with this, I want to say that the highest moment in my work during these months was probably the short radio reports, radio packages that I got from my students from the Mariupol State University. When I posed them a task to do something like a radio diary of their life, I expected good stuff, but I haven't expected, frankly, that this would be a ready to broadcast radio packages. I played 3 of them on the very next day that I got them, and then another one when it came with a day's delay. And what I was especially glad about in their work was that, and that's again about standards, that those young people were they did not. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yep,
Yes,
yep, thank you.
What I was especially glad, and this is also about standards, was that those young people have not used indignation or swear words or labels in what they've seen. They just described the situation. And this was absolutely enough for anyone who more or less followed the events in Mariupol and the fates of people who were there. On the 24th of February, our radio tried to broadcast from our usual studios, but because we rent them from an official organization, we were obliged to go to the bomb shelter every 20 minutes or so. We tried to repeat this on the 25th, but then again, it very soon became clear that you cannot broadcast in such circumstances, because we really spent more time running to and fro the bomb shelter than at the mic. So we dispersed. And since the 26th of February, some of us were and are broadcasting from our kitchens, some from cellars, some from a veranda somewhere in the country house, or probably not in their country house, but wherever they were able to find shelter in these very, very hard days. Out of 50 or so our members, 7 remained in Kyiv through the siege of the city. 5 of us were on air and 2 of us were sound producers. Here is when the skills that I got when I was trained to operate a self-op at the BBC came very, very handy, very, very handy. And many people were also enthusiastic about learning these skills. Mind you that 5 years ago, when I tried to persuade my colleagues to learn self-oping, our sound engineers became very worried. They thought the idea was to replace them, but no, you know what I mean. Another professional experience is talking to foreign colleagues. On the very first day, when we were in this bomb shelter, and it was all next to impossible to get to us, I suddenly, by some miracle, got a phone call from New Delhi. And they asked, and that's when people from Kyiv or other places in Ukraine could not call me. And they asked, are you going to talk to us? Yes, of course, I said. And the first question from across our continents was, now that Kyiv has fallen to the enemy, what are you going to do? This was the first day. So you have to explain right away, if you're live on air or if you are recorded, that the situation is not necessarily like it is presented. I think that in many cases by Russians, because India is a focus of attention from the Russian propaganda, but also this comes not only because of enemy propaganda, this comes because we're not easily reachable and we've been to a certain extent neglected by the foreign media. Out of my experience of talking to Canadians, Americans, and Britons, I would say that the BBC still shows the best marks. And I'll be talking to BBC Scotland at 2:05 our time. That's in 15 minutes or so. And what they ask usually, the first question is something like, what do you see out of your window? And that's what people should ask. Have you heard explosions today? Is it easy to get food? Is it easy to get water? And what do your neighbors say? This is the world scale media gone hyperlocal. And that's again about the importance of hyperlocal media. Another very touching and very telling moment was a call from a producer, a US television producer. This was at the height of a bombardment of Kyiv back in March. And she was asking, well, you know how they thoroughly prepare to interviews. She asked, where are you broadcasting from? I say, from my kitchen. But what do you do when the sirens are going on? I say, then I retreat to my bathroom and broadcast from there. And she says, you know, your corridor may be safer. And then I register that she has a Slavic surname ending in ich. And I ask her, are you from Balkans by any chance? And she says, yes, I'm from Bosnia. So she has experienced almost the same thing, maybe more severe, maybe less severe, but very similar. And this was one of the manifestations of professional solidarity. She found time to give me a life-saving maybe or health-saving advice, and also the indication of how similar we are in many ways, although we cannot sometimes do not pay attention to this. Another huge question which is being debated in Ukraine is whether you can criticize your armed forces or your government during the war. I say it is absolutely necessary. If you have grounds to criticize them, yes, not to gain some popularity or give people a shock and make them listen to you more or read you more. But if you are a witness or if you get verified facts about what we are doing wrongly, including things like looting or some crimes perpetrated or being in danger of perpetrated by Ukrainian soldiers, or embezzlement by Ukrainian officials, or looting among the civil population, then you have to report it. Then you have to ask questions about this so that we are not whitewashing what we do. And the recent case, by the way, we had our ombudsman, the human rights ombudsman, recently removed from her position. It turns out that she was inventing some of the crimes that she ascribed to the aggressor. That's absolutely awful, because we do not need to invent anything. It's enough to watch, to spot, and to publish. Of course, it is important that, as we now know, journalistic materials can be accepted by some international tribunals and international courts as proof or as evidence. And this again says that you have to adhere to standards, because any doubt in that you have distorted the reality makes your proof or your evidence null and void. So most of my colleagues are now back in Kiev. They are thinking about moving back to our grandiose offices in Khreshchatyk, in 26 Khreshchatyk Street, but I'm one of those people who say no, it's too early, because if the bomb or a missile hits there, then you lose the entire operation. If it hits one of the subunits that we are now in, then another subunit can quickly jump in and continue your broadcast. This, by the way, has happened not in this tragic form, but still. And so that's basically it. We are looking for truth, because truth saves lives. When people under the occupation listened to radio, I know verified cases when they were able to leave the occupied towns and villages, listening to information on radio where it was relatively safe to go and where they shouldn't have gone in any case. And I know people who traveled 2 or even more 100 kilometers and got to safety because they listened to radio.
Well, just on that point, Andrei, have people in Ukraine gained a greater appreciation of radio since in the last 6 months, perhaps? I mean, I don't know what the trends are in Ukraine in terms of listeners and how many people still listen to radio here in the UK. I think it's fair to say, colleagues, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's fair to say that radio here in the UK, sadly, is something is declining in listenership. Young people, social media, of course, is predominant. Have you seen something different happen in Ukraine in the last few months?
Yes, but just in the last months, and mostly among those people who were deprived of any other means of communication. When you are under occupation, that's typical. You don't have mobile connection, you don't have internet connection, the television is switched off. So what do? As Svetlana told us, you go to your cellar or to your loft, pick up an old transistor, fix it, and listen to radio. So I think that listenership has gone up, but it is rather limited. But those people who have experienced this, I think that they will spread the word. And of course, you should understand that even on the decline, the listenership in the UK is still, I would say, if not hundreds, then dozens of times bigger than in Ukraine. Just to tell you about the scale of the money involved in radio, within the last 15 years, the biggest single investment in radio was $5 million. And that was when one Czech entrepreneur bought a radio network, a talk radio network from a Ukrainian oligarch, $5 million. Then there was, of course, the money channeled to the public broadcaster, but that's another thing. And it was mostly for television.
Okay, thank you, Andrei. Sergei, can I come to you next? Just tell us a little bit about the National Union of Journalists in Ukraine. We're well aware here of our National Union of Journalists in the UK. Is it a similar organization in Ukraine? How many people do you represent? And yeah, what have you been doing over the last few months to support your members?
Okay, dear friends, dear Jan, yep. we know and we have great relationships with NUJ, or National Union of Journalists from Great Britain and Ireland. And we thanks to NUJ for great support to Ukrainian journalists, especially support with safety equipment and with other needs in Ukraine. I want to talk about journalist union unity and about journalist solidarity in time of war. And I am the president of the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine, the largest journalist organization in Ukraine. If you compare the union in Great Britain, your union is more as a trade union, but our union is more as professional association. And we consisted of about 18,000 of members. There are 24, or there were 24 regional branches, and in every region of Ukraine, and maybe third part of our union is retired or veterans of journalism, but we are the most or biggest journalist organization in Ukraine. Traditionally, in peacetime, journalist unions and associations focus on basic priorities such as protecting freedom of speech, protecting the rights of journalists, and helping the media to transform into new reality or to survive in digital times. And the basic topic for us, for our union in the pre-war period, was the fight against impunity for physical attacks on journalists. But one moment on February 24th, everything changed, and our union has become an organization of thousands of frontline journalists in Ukraine. And the main challenges for us and new areas of activities. First is assistance to journalists with protective equipment, with first aid kits, because colleagues should continue to perform their professional duties. We were not prepared for war, and only dozens of Ukrainian journalists on maybe high-level media organization were trained for frontline or how to survive and how to cover war. But but every journalist now should be trained, should have safety equipment, and should have such first aid kits. The second activities is humanitarian assistance and assistance in the evacuation of journalists from the temporarily occupied territories or regions where war affairs are taking place. For example, we have a separate priority project, assistance in rescuing journalists from Mariupol, and we helped with routes, made lists of journalists about whom at least something became known, and for this moment we have provided financial assistance to more than 50 Mariupol journalists, and we try to assist with technical equipment for work as laptops and cameras and others. And for this moment, there are more than maybe 20 journalists who now are on occupied territory, journalists from Mariupol who are now on occupied territories or maybe in Russia, and we try to support our colleagues too. We try to give some operational and medium-term assistance to journalists who evacuated from Russian occupied territories, and we try to give assistance and communication with journalists who now in the occupied territories. Unfortunately, our colleagues in Kherson, in Melitopol or Berdyansk can't work openly as journalists. And in the first days of the occupations, the Russians began to seize the local media, they press and threaten journalists and capture journalists or their relatives. For example, in Melitopol, Russians searched the apartment of RIA Melitopol online media editor-in-chief Svetlana Zalizhetska and took hostage her 75-year-old father. And they called her at the first evening, occupiers called her at the first evening, and they demanded from her that she should come to Melitopol, and they will change her father on her, because they want to stop news coverage from this RIA Melitopol online media. And among the important areas of our work is cooperation with international journalist unions to bring Russian propagandists to justice. And our union is convinced that the Russian media deliberately incited hostility towards Ukrainians and thus encourages a full-scale military invasion in Ukraine. And now, these Russian propagandists, they are advocating war. So there must be responsibility for this. The National Union of Journalists of Ukraine demands to exclude the Russian Union of Journalists from the International Federation of Journalists. And at the level of Brussels, we support the efforts of the European Federation of Journalists to set up a special tribunal on Russia for crimes against media workers. And Russian propagandists must also receive international punishment too. Another important area is to help the Ukrainian media industry, which is in economical stagnation due to the war. Sources of media revenue have fallen, and now we see that donations and international donor assistance are important, but not enough for the whole industry, for the whole Ukrainian media. That is why we are lobbying for the expansion of international government media support programs. And at the level of Ukraine, we propose to establish a special foundation or fund for the development of Ukrainian media in order to provide mass grants for media content and for support journalists. It's important that journalists should stay in our respectable profession and don't leave it. Although the present time is very difficult, and it's a moment when we are talking about unprecedented journalistic solidarity, when every journalist and media outlet tries to help their colleagues. So our union has even launched a special network, the Journalist Solidarity Centers, to help colleagues in need and to encourage journalists to unite. Currently, this network includes 3 mini co-working offices with staff in the cities of Western Ukraine, Ivano-Frankivsk, Lviv, and Chernivtsi. And for this moment, more than 300 journalists and media workers were provided with practical financial assistance and technical equipment. Now we plan to open such centers in Kyiv and Zaporizhia, a large frontline city in Ukraine, and we use some donations from Foreign Journalist Union, from European Federation, International Federation, from different funds, because it's a good idea to establish special centers for journalists to assist their requests, because every day now, as a hotline day from the morning to the night, we are receiving many requests, and we should support our colleague. And I want to cite at the final 2 cases of mutual support for local newspapers in the Kyiv region, which was under temporary Russian occupation. In the Ivankiv town, the Russians robbed the editorial office of a local newspaper, and our union turned to a charitable foundation that received funds from the American newspaper, the Washington Times, and a computer was donated to this small local newspaper. But after this, we see that this small editorial office makes weekly newspaper in which it publishes evidence about Russian war crimes at Ivankiv, at this territory, as good hyperlocal newspaper and hyperlocal journalists who try to cover war crimes on these territories. And another second case is about a town that was massively shelled by the Russians, is Borodyanka. The editorial office of the local newspaper in Borodyanka was robbed and set on fire. However, colleagues were recently able to print the first issue after the occupation, and the layout was helped by the editorial office from the neighboring town Bucha, as you know, but Buchansky Noviny, Bucha News now is survived and tried to support another colleagues and journalists. And our union of journalists financed the printing of the circulation of this hyperlocal newspaper. So now we see the second newspaper which can be alive, which can print, which can fix war crimes of Russians. And the current time is very difficult, but it's our duty to remain faithful to our great profession and to support colleagues. After all, today the traditional slogan or motto of the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine sounds prouder than ever. Our motto is "Journalists are important."
Absolutely. Thank you, Sergei. And thank you for sharing those encouraging stories at the end there as well, which just gives us some hope. Nick, if I can come to you next, Mariupol TV. Wow. Tell us about what the last 5-6 months have been like for you, what has changed and what still stands.
Everything changed, yeah. Like the colleagues said, it's very important to speak in your media, yeah. It's to speak. I'm like Andrew, oftenly speaking in BBC Scotland. Yeah, it's very good, guys. They promised me when there will be victory of Ukraine, they will send me some Scotch whiskey. Yeah, I will wait for it, and
yeah, keep them to that.
Yeah. But if we are talking about last month, I think we need to start to talk about the match. So, you know, as Svetlana told and the colleagues told, the most important thing in the war, I think, it's information, yeah. And as my colleagues told, many of people are trying to find some old radio, yeah. I searched everything for find it, but I don't found it, yeah. And only way to get information for me was the Telegram, yeah, the Telegram. But we must understand that from the 2nd of March in Mariupol there was no electricity. And then after a few days, I think after 3 days or 4 days, there was down the cell net, yeah. So we don't have any internet, but many people climbed to the higher floors of the buildings, and only there you could find some little bit of net. What I made from the start of the war, yeah, from the 24th of the February, for the 2nd of March, we are making the lives in our TV channel, the lives with the local government, with the military, We informed the people how they need to survive in shelling's case, in so on. Yeah, when we lost electricity, we lost our air. Yeah. Then we started to make our job only digital way. It was the Facebook, it was the YouTube, it was our news site, Mariupol City. And you know, for some days, I think for 3 or 4 days, when we had a Telnet in our city, people read us, people tried to find us, because only the local media could give to people the information from the city, because you know the big national networks wasn't able to get some information from the city. They don't knew anything about us. So I in the 2nd of March in the evening, I talked to the guys who owns Telegram channels in our city. And you know, before the war, all of us who owns the Telegram channels, it was the enemies for each other. Yeah, so we are trying to find between us. But I spoke with them, and we decided to make a group in Telegram to inform people about the shellings, about the missile attacks, and so on. Because the alert system in Mariupol fell down in the 2nd of March. Yeah, so we couldn't hear some warnings. And if we are talking about the good things for media, you know, before the war, Telegram channel of our news site, Mariupol City, was something about, I think, 4,000 people. Yeah, it's very little bit. But when we started to inform people about the shellings, about the alerts, about the tank attacks, and so on, I think for 5 days, my Telegram channel was grown up to 25,000 people. Yeah, so I hope that I think maybe 1 life, maybe 10 lives was saved by these posts in Telegram. Yeah, so people could see what is going on. When we lost at Telnet, I'm sorry, it's some strange sound from the window. When we lost the Telnet, it was very bad thing, because people became to live in the whole information vacuum. Yeah, so you don't know anything. You don't know anything about your city, about your country, about other countries. You don't know nothing. And the only thing what you have, it's the rumors in the city, in the change in the chains for the water, for the food, and Russian use it, and they giving to people the rumors what they needed. Yeah, it was very bad thing. What I started to do from I think I started to do it from the beginning of the war, but in the March I made it like I'm climbed up to the 10th floor of my building. I tried to find some net. When I found it, I put on the Facebook, on the Telegram, little video blogs about what is going on in the city. And you must understand that the video blog, I think less than a minute. Yeah, so it's very little one video blog in a low quality. It was sent to a Facebook something about 40 minutes. Yeah, so you are standing with your hand, raise it up with the phone, and looking for the planes which are going by your window. So as I understood later, it was very important thing, because even the big news channels from Ukraine took my video blogs and placed it into the air. Yeah, so that's a guy from Mariupol, and he telling what is going on there. When I escaped this city in 15th of March, I was very angry for me for this video blogs, because from Mariupol to Zaporizhia, it was something about 25 or 30 Russian checkpoints. Yeah, and in any checkpoints, I waited, so the Russian military guy thought, hey, this is you, but no. For these days, there was no mobile phones, no notebooks on the Russian checkpoints. Yeah, it was very big luck for me. As I know, something about 19th of March, they started to use the databases on their checkpoints. From the 18th of March, my employers who stayed in the city for this time, yeah, they told me that Russians are trying to find me. Yeah, so I think the 15th of March was the best day to escape. If we are talking about the power of local media, it's very big. You know, for now, our news site is working in Zaporizhia right now, but my employers, they are all around the world. Yeah, I have a girl in Norway, I have a guy in Scotland. Yeah, so they are working, and as I see, in the reports that in Mariupol people are reading our site, people are trying to find some information, some true information, because the truth is very important, as Andrew told, yeah. And you know, when the people in Mariupol, in some little cities which are occupied, when they read the truth, they started to think that they need to escape, because when they just living in the field of Russian propaganda, yeah, they thinking about that Kiev is fell down, Odessa is fell down, Zaporizhia is by Russians, yeah, and so on. So they don't know anything. I think we must work with the occupied territories, because they don't know nothing about the real situation. We must work with them. We must speak with them every day. We must tell them what is going on, and we must ask them to escape, because you know. If we will lost some months, and people in these months will live in the Russian information field, we will lose the people, yeah, because people will think that we are Nazi or something, yeah. One of my girls employers, she escaped to Europe, but she went to Europe by the Russian territory, yeah, with a little son. And when she was in Federation camp, the Russian asked her every day about me, how oftenly I was talking with my people, how oftenly I asked them to hate Russia, Russians, and so on. So they I believe in own lies. They live in the liar informational field, and if we wouldn't talk to our people there, we will lose them, yeah. And I'm very glad to work in a university, because when I speaking with the students, with these young guys, young girls, I see that everything will be good, because as I told you, if my student girl stand in Moscow and she don't afraid to speak Ukrainian, yeah, it's very good thing. It's I think we have a very good future, but we will have some very difficult years, yeah. We will have some difficult years. We will lose our people, but we must live for these young guys, young girls, and I hope that everything will be good. That's all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Nick, for all of that. Folks, we have about 5 minutes left, so if you've got any questions, we'll try and race through those questions very quickly. I just have one last question really for our panelists. I mean, what do journalists at this moment in time in Ukraine need most? Obviously, you know, we're at a different stage of the conflict now. What would you say that journalists in Ukraine, to be able to report what is actually happening and to be able to report it accurately and fairly, what do they need most right now, would you say? Whether that's Oksana, Andrei, Sergey, Nick, what would you say is the most pressing need right now?
Yeah,
To retain, yeah.
Oksana, yeah, just briefly, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just I think informational support is very, very important, because the world can't tire it about our work, but we will still have it. So to everybody who involved in media out of Ukraine, it is really critical and important to do not stop to talking about it. Yeah. Psychological support also is very, very important. I have a lot of talks with our journalists, with other media managers in local media, and they're really tired. And psychological support will help them to survive and to continue to doing their job as well. And of course, financial support, yeah, is needed. All of our colleagues from Europe doing the best in this part of a problem, and thank you very much to all of them for this. But we still have to understand that this war will not end in 1 or 2 months. It will keep going longer, and everybody out of Ukraine who can support us have to be ready for this long-term support. Yeah.
Thank you. Andrei, you want to say something there?
Yeah, I think we need to retain common sense, sober mind, courage to do what sometimes is not very liked by the audience, but also care for the audience's interests, especially in providing for their safety and security as much as we can. And we need attention from people like you, because every manifestation of international solidarity refutes the myth that you are losing interest towards us. So that's what we need.
Yeah, no, thank you. Nick. Yes, Nick.
Look, I want to say also that we really need to places to speak with your people. Yeah, we need to scream about the situation in our country, because as Andrew says, that attention for Ukraine is not very high. Yeah, what I'm doing from the 16th of March, when I came to Zaporizhia, every day I have ears in all the TV stations of the world. Yeah, I'm speaking with people. I'm telling them about the Mariupol, about the Ukraine, about the hell which was going on in Mariupol, and what I see right now that attention for us in March was much bigger than it's now. Yeah, when I speaking with US people right now, yeah, they telling me, okay, it's maybe some humanitarian catastrophe, some little one. I'm telling them, no, it's the hell, it's the really hell. And they don't believe it. I know that people in your countries, in other countries, have their own problems. Yeah, have the economical problems right now. But we must understand, and I think we must talk to your people, that if we wouldn't stop Russia here, the Russia will go to your countries. Yeah. So I think it's very important thing to all the journalists work together against the Russia. Yeah. So right now, I think the Russians will be right that I am speaking with some guys and telling them to hate Russia, but I started to do it only right now.
Thank you. Well, just two last questions from our audience. One about regulation. I mean, do particularly broadcast organizations, is there much in the way of regulation from above in terms of what you can and cannot report? I mean, in the UK, we have very strict regulators who make sure that our broadcast organizations are not seen to be partisan. Is that the same? I mean, do you feel right now that you are receiving any kind of regulation? Do you want that? Do you not want that? That's the first question. And then Petro's just asking something about, is it time that we ask journalists to define their social responsibility during wartime? Would it be, I know, Petro, I hope I'm summarizing this correctly, but I think Petro's question is, do we need to give more thought to the social responsibility that journalists have in times of conflict? Anyone want to just come in on any of those, either of those topics, the regulation or the social responsibility angle? Yes, thank you, Nick, again.
When we are talking about the regulation in a wartime, right now, what I see from the experience of my TV channel, yeah. So what I received from our control, the National Soviet of Television and Broadcasting, yeah, it's only help. So I received the help from them for my TV channel, for my employers, yeah. For now, we're working with them in the money cases, yeah. So I think it's everything good. When we're talking about the social responsibility, I think, yeah, the Petro is right, because it's very big thing, and for now it's the biggest thing, because the journalists for now is they have responsibilities for the people's lives, yeah. And I will talk and I will tell another one time that the journalists must speak with the people in occupied territories and asking them to escape. And it's very big responsibility, not only the social, but for their lives, yeah.